Today I'm going to share a slideshow of some of the photos that I took at a recent outing at the zoo. I hope that you enjoy these photos. I arrived early at the zoo and was met with the sounds of the gibbon. I saw this as an opportunity to go ahead and use my Sony A7 IV along with the Tamron 70 to 180mm 2.8 lens. This was a good opportunity to see how well this lens and camera combination would perform. Even though it's very bright and early in the morning, they're in an area that's quite shaded. And I wanted to make sure I had a fast enough shutter speed, and that's why I used an ISO of 1600. And in this photo, he's swinging away from the camera, which would make it difficult for autofocus tracking, especially with the eyes moving away. But I thought that the camera performed well. This was a good opportunity with the gibbon looking right at me. No doubt that the autofocus should be able to find the eyes. One thing that I'm trying to make a habit of when I go to the zoo is make sure I have a camera and lens ready to photograph any birds that I might find in the area. I don't typically take photos of turtles, but this one caught my eye. I kind of like the way I composed the photograph, where I was able to use the shell to fill in the entire frame and then have the head poking out of the water. For this photo of the Babirusa, I used the Sony A7R IV. This is at 400mm. I had to wait for quite some time as the animal was moving around, but his head was down. I was fortunate where one of the workers from the zoo pulled up and it got the animal's attention and he raised his head to see what was going on. I quickly was able to grab this photograph. For this next series of photos of the chimpanzees, I was very fortunate that the zookeeper arrived and started feeding them some snacks. This gave me a great opportunity to take some photos of the chimpanzees with the snacks in their mouth and moving around. I set the Sony A7R IV to manual, selecting the shutter speed and the aperture combination. I purposely overexposed the background to make sure that I could get a good exposure on the dark fur of the chimpanzee. I'm very happy with the fact that I was able to get some catch light and most of these photographs of the chimpanzees. I think the photos turned out quite nice. When I arrived to the exhibit of the Bay Duker, I was fortunate to discover that there was quite a few babies in the exhibit. One of the babies decided he was going to go out and run a bunch of laps. This gave me a great opportunity to take some photos. I placed the autofocus square on the face and would follow the animal as it ran around the exhibit. I used a very high ISO for these photographs because I wanted to make sure that I could keep a shutter speed fast enough to freeze the action. Again, I'm dealing with an animal that would be in a shadow or shaded area with an overexposed background. For these photos, again, all of my settings are done manually, and I'm typically overexposing a little bit on the animal because I'm dealing with overexposed background. The camera that I use for these photos is the Sony A7R IV, and I am very pleased with the photos and how well the autofocus tracked. As I approached the elephant exhibit, I noticed that the elephant was spraying sand on his back. I quickly zoomed out to about 180mm for these photographs. I love this one photo here at the end where his trunk is kind of swinging around. I like the intense look of this animal. I guess I was drawing his attention. On the Sony A7 IV, I set it to manual autofocus so that I can use the macro feature of the Tamron 70 to 180 Harpy Eagle. You can see just how sharp the Sony 100 to 400mm lens is. You can see that the eyes are perfectly sharp, and you can even see some fur on the beak of the eagle from the snack that he was having at the time. Plush crested jay was quite challenging as he wouldn't sit still for very long. It was a man-made perch that he was sitting on, so I did not want to include it on my photograph. So my plan was to compose the photo of just his head. I was fortunate with the eagle that a zookeeper came into the exhibit and caught the eagle's attention. That gave me an opportunity to get some interesting photos of the eagle. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.